Copy your image and put it in here. Power and the glory. And put up this one. Just Barry.
What's your YouTube link?
My YouTube link? It's this one I'm using is Genesis is John Kelly's. I have so many different ones, but I use this one.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't know that at one time I post and then there's some songs I post and they just thing it off. Okay, so we're good to go on all fronts. So set the music up and we go.
Brother John, where the music is coming across in bits and pieces.
Yeah, I just cut it off. I had to overplay anyway.
Hello, good afternoon. And you know, anytime you hear that sound on GM FM, you know it is time for the message to the grassroots program or the MTTG show, hosted by me, Raphael Paul. Yes, that's Pablo. And I am here with you this afternoon. Once again, this is the 6th edition, the 6th Saturday afternoon edition of the MTTG show, the Message to the Grassroots show. And we have with us 2 guests. Yes, I know you are accustomed to seeing Brother John Caliste, and he is usually there as our technical operator more often than not, or you will have him hosting programs, but actually he's a guest this afternoon. He's one of our panelists. So he's playing a dual role. And we have also with us Dr. Tessa Barry. And you know, it's been a couple of weeks now. We've been trying to get Dr. Tessa Barry to join the MTTG show. But she's such a busy lady and she's in such high demand, you know. One time it was the BBC, another time it was some other commitment. But we finally have her here with us this afternoon, and it's a pleasure to finally welcome Dr. Tessa Barry to the Message to the Grassroots program, the MTTG show, as I call it, you from Sunset City, yes, beautiful Victoria, although my virtual background is the Guelph Beach, you know. I have dual citizenship, you know, I have dual citizenship.
Republic of Guelph,
Guelph
right?
and Victoria. Yes, you know, a colleague of mine up here, he asked me one time, he said, Pablo, where you from? Guelph, Victoria. I have dual citizenship.
Right.
So welcome to you, Lady Tessa Barry. Good afternoon. If you don't mind saying good afternoon to our guests. And those of you who have already joined us, please share the live. Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Paul. Good afternoon, Mr. Caliste. And good afternoon to your listening audience. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
We are hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to be here and joining in this conversation. I'm happy to be here. And good afternoon once again to all.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have with us someone who doesn't need any introduction. Not that Dr. Barry really needs the introduction, you know, because
No.
she's been here on the GMFM. She's been here on the GMFM platform before. You know, she's one of the GMFM family, isn't she, Brother John?
Yeah, she is.
Yes.
She was handpicked by the B-man. He said, "This intelligent lady, I got to talk to her. Can I?" She's speaking my truth. You know, I have some information to give to her for me. You know,
Okay.
and let us have a conversation with her, because all what she's talking about there is things that want happen to Grenada, and we found out that she have gotten a pamphlet from her dad that outlines certain elements of the agricultural stuff of Grenada. And you know, one of the amazing thing about Dr. Tessa is that she didn't just read the information, she applied it and become Dr. Tessa. And that was man was impressed with that. I'll tell you that he was really, really impressed with that. So again, that way is that, man. So you know, stranger to GMFM, you're family to GMFM.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure having her. But you see, typically there'll always be people out there who not certain who Dr. Tessa Barry really is. So if you'll take a moment and just share who it really is, Dr. Tessa Barry.
Well, my name is Tessa Barry. Originally, I'm Tessa Batiste. Batiste is my maiden name, or Pierre, as in, right. So I am from the community of Butch Grove in St. Andrew. So I was born there and lived there for many years. And then back and forth within the community. I'm still a very active member of the community, even if I no longer live there. What else? I usually say I'm a child of the revolution. So if you want to think of me as that, I was shaped back then. So that usually when I'm asked about myself, I usually say I'm a child of the revolution. I attended the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School, so that's SAS. So SAS is my alma mater. And what else? I think that's about it. I am a culture lover. I'm a lover of the arts. So whether it's pan or calypso or just the performing arts in general, you would find me involved. Even if it's as a spectator, but I'm always involved. I have a passion for agricultural development. I do have a passion for that, and I also have a passion for community. And so that's why, it was a pleasure for me when Pablo reached out to be a part of this conversation. And most persons who know me would know I'm also an advocate for nation building and, for development of country. So that's about it.
Well, essentially, it's good that you mentioned nation building, because our subject matter this afternoon is our nation building agenda. And we know that agriculture is a significant element of our nation building agenda, or at least it ought to be. Over the past few years, it has not really been given the prominence that we think it should, but we have, based on the experiences we've had with COVID and all of that, there seems to be a refocus, in terms of making agriculture a most significant element of our agenda going forward. Speaking of agriculture, Dr. Barry, there is a piece that if one was to visit LinkedIn, one would find an abstract relating to an article that was done between yourself and one Levi Garman, and it has to do with grassroots women in the Caribbean and you know, recognizing the political agency of rural grassroots women in the Caribbean, and the kind of focus that you brought to that whole issue. Can you tell us what this was about? Because it seemed to have focused on our OECS region, particularly Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and so on. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Dr. Levi and myself, if I could just give you a bit of a background, and we should also take me into a project that I'm currently on now that I would like to speak about, that would contribute to this whole issue of nation building from an agricultural perspective. Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Levi and myself, he actually was my supervisor when I was doing my PhD in Trinidad at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Levi. And he, realizing that I had a passion for research, that I had a passion for writing, he, you know, we collaborated and started doing research. And we actually have a number of publications, and this is just one of those, that looked at agriculture. And the importance of that was not just to look at agriculture as it is currently, but where it came from and who were the contributors in terms of shaping it for a more forward thinking, forward looking, and the idea of women and the relevance and the importance in the whole in the whole psyche of the development of agriculture, recognizing their contribution, recognizing the role they played, you know, from the grassroots. Yeah, and that's where this whole idea of the article came from, doing the research in it, identifying our women, those who played different roles, etc. And so we highlighted, you know, not just from the agriculture perspective, from the educational aspect too, and the role they played.
Okay. So what would you say would have been the most significant outcome from that whole exercise?
Well, currently what I'm doing now, that the project I am involved in now, is a significant outcome of that exercise. We are currently on, I would say, a 2-year project. It's going to take a lot of time to talk about this project, Pablo. So I don't know if you want me to delve into it now.
Okay.
But I can actually give
just give us the broad picture.
Right, a brief summary. So the project basically is entitled Forward Ever, Backward Never, Documenting and Revitalizing Revolutionary Agriculture and Sustainable Food Systems in Grenada. So during the research is that what we found out is that during the period 79 to 1983, which is basically the revolutionary period, we saw significant growth in agriculture. And if you look at many of the documentation of agriculture during that period, we're not seeing much in terms of capturing the voices of those who contributed, as well as documenting what was done, the lessons learned, the best practices there that saw such a development. So out of that collaborative effort, we sat down and wrote a project outline to what we refer to as the Arts and Humanities Research Council, which is a European-based funding agency that's in the UK. It's called Arts and Humanities Research Council. And through the guidance of Dr. Levi, we wrote for a project that would look at capturing or documenting what happened during that time, during the revolutionary period, in terms of agricultural development. Why was it so successful? And what are the lessons we learned from that period that we can actually take forward into our current times? So we can actually use it to help in terms of nation building, learning the lessons from from that particular period. And we were successful with the funding. And the funding does not only include the documentation and archiving, it also includes funding what would be a virtual library. So where we would have the opportunity to feature and document the voices as well as the written articles and the archiving, etc., that we find, the archive that we find, opportunities for persons to be able to access it, but putting it in such a way that it's reader friendly, that not just for those who probably do not just want to read an article, but capturing it in terms of videography, voice, voiceover, and this sort of way, pictograph, etc. Through a virtual library. This project would also include opportunities for training. So out of it would come an opportunity for workshop. The funding would, yes, to encourage training from women, because we thought that women were instrumental, vital in terms of agricultural development, the gender perspective of it. And so there would be an opportunity to fund a training session, also from a youth perspective, and also from a general agro-processing and farming perspective. And the project is expected to culminate with funding of a national agricultural expo. So we're hoping that, we would get the support of the ministry, etc. It would be a fully funded expo because that's part of what we wrote for under the project. So coming out from that collaborative effort from the article you saw, yes, as well as the opportunity I got with Mr. Callis and the whole revolutionary memory, that organization that usually have their panel discussions. And so I was invited to one of these discussions, and I saw the need, because of my passion for agriculture, I saw the need to, and agriculture and history, I have a passion for those two subject matter. And so I saw the need to marry the two and, highlight. And so we wrote for this project and was successful. Actually, it was, we received word that we were successful in accessing these funds since 2022. No, sorry, since 2020, the latter part of 29 into 2020. But then COVID came about. And so with all of what went on with COVID, and so they held back on the funding, etc. They held back. And so right after there was this relax, they reached out to me and said, okay, that, remember that project, we're fully on board. We're looking for you. And so again. Yes, and so I'm very thankful for that. So currently, we've embarked on the research. We've done a few interviews already. We're reaching out to persons who are involved back then. Anything they have agricultural related, any information they have agricultural related, that we would definitely like to have an opportunity to chat with them, as well as if there are any documents, any pictures, anything that they think is worthy of archiving and sharing that we can eventually use in the virtual library space.
Okay, now with that being the case, before I move on to Brother John, you've expressed your passion for agriculture and for history. Now, this is not very common and very typical of our Caribbean or Grenadian women, is it?
I think so. Well, I from my own, for example, we have Dr. Nicole Dow. Dr. Nicole Dow did an entire piece on women during the revolutionary period, women who contributed to development from a Grenadian perspective, and she would have named quite a few of our astute women from the Grenadian perspective. So I know, well, she's an historian, so I'm guessing that, yeah, she has that passion as an historian. And so I would say, you know, we do have some persons who have that passion. I am not so certain in terms of on the younger side of it. In terms of young women, I am those, if anyone is listening now, there probably might be a few out there, but from those that I know of, it's not, as you quite rightly said, that it's not many. But agriculture, we do have a lot of women involved, because agriculture is extensive. When you look at the broad perspective, it's not just on farm, but you have the value addition, the agro-processing, the services aspects, and we do have quite a large percentage of women involved, especially from the agro-processing sector in Grenada.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll be back to you shortly. Brother John, tell us something. You're a man who wears many hats. What are some of the various things that you're involved in? Just bring up to speed on that. And the short version.
Many things I'm involved in. I mean, at this present time, well, at present, I'm involved with two different organizations besides GEM-FM. Two church organizations, Settlement Out in Christ and New Life Worship Center. Coming up, we're going to Trinidad on a mission to have feed the community project and having a kind of a conference and a free gospel concert with Sean Daniel out of artists out there in Trinidad. It's all free. So we'll be doing feeding all week whilst we're there for the community. Whilst here in Canada, I'm fully involved with GEM-FM and Genesis Magazine. So that's my personal project that I have babysitting for a while now. So I am doing these two things. In terms of social justice and stuff like that in the community, I'm very much involved with that, and trying to see how much I get people involved in activities that surround justice for humanity and stuff like that. So that I do. I love working with people, as I've been involved even from my early years. I've always been involved in the political arena as a student, So up until now, what I've done, like Tessa said, she's a student of the revolution. I am also a student of the revolution. And all the training that I've got at the early years, it will come full circle here with what I'm doing. Some people think, well, where I get the energy from? I think the energy comes from the seed that was planted in me from the years gone by. So basically, here I am. I'm building an organization, a media house, enterprise, GEM-FM and Genesis Magazine, and TV. So that's where I'm at.
Tell us a little more about your media operation as someone, and quote unquote, as someone from Caribbean background, running such an operation in Canada. What's it like for people like you in that kind of field out there and looking to build an entity from the ground up?
Well, okay, for me, the whole idea of GEM-FM Genesis Magazine began very early at my school level. I was a member of the National Students Council, and the Eastern side, I was responsible for that Eastern side and editor of the newsletter. And then right after that, I went into the army right after that, the 1979 revolution. But when I came to Canada, I started a church magazine, a newsletter, and the church did a survey with a brother called Ron Blake. He had a school, and we had a conversation. Out of the conversation, he decided going to do a sort of a study to find out what the men in the church wanted to do. So one of the things that I put on my thing, what I wanted to do was to start a magazine or interest in the media. And two other persons had done that, and indicated that they wanted to be part of that. So we started to do a magazine, and we did the magazine, and I charged one of the brothers with the responsibility of doing the magazine. And he produced the magazine. And I knew it was not to my standard, but I still allowed it to go because, it was being weighed up on for a while. And the first copy that came out, the brother came back and he called me. He said, "I want to speak to you." And he said, "Oh, and all the other men." He said, I want back my money. He was charging $2. I said, I want all my money. $2, you want back his money. And he said, John, I know you could do better than this. Check over this thing. And I want to meet all the men on Tuesday. I said, okay, sure. I wanted to produce a magazine cover and to show what it is like. So I went home the night, and I said, okay, I gotta do this thing. So Sunday night, I got home. I made 4 copies of a magazine cover. And I brought it into the church on Tuesday evening with all the men. And he took it and he said, you see that? He passed it around. He said, this is what I'm talking about. This guy could do it. I need him to do it. So we decided to do the magazine, and we ended up doing the magazine. But then, as usual, in every organization, there is some people feel that they have to have the final say. They have to do it. They want their attention. So after the first publication, there was sort of a rambling about it. I said, okay, you guys take it and go with it. I'm out. So I left them with it. They never produced one. And my wife said to me, say, John, we always wanted to do a magazine. We always wanted to do this stuff. So let us do it together. Let's do our thing. So came the first Gulf War with George Bush and them.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him back at the church, and the pastor was preaching, and all the blame was on Saddam. All the blame was, and the news was one way. I said, you know what? I gotta get this magazine going and bring out this other side of the news, and broadcast it. So we embarking on the magazine. With my wife and I went out and we registered, licensed it up, and we started producing. We produced the magazine 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 magazines, and we keep going. And when she went on the stage, when we launched the magazine, she said, we're going to have a radio station in 10 years, whether it be commercial radio or internet radio. No, I didn't know she'd do a research on internet radio yet at the time, but she already ahead of me. But she went and do research on internet radio and said that would be the in thing, So as soon as it happens, I told the brother, I said, Kennedy, you know what? My wife and I want to do internet radio. So he set up something at his house, went to his house a couple of times, and then my wife said, you know what? She can't take the long drive back and forth. So long shot of the story, came to 2015, I decided to do some research on myself and stuff like that. And then right after church one Sunday, the brother came to me and said, Brother John, do you still want to do this radio station? I said, man, every day is my gospel. I've been anytime people ask me what I'm doing now, I never mention the company I work for. I always say, I have a magazine and I soon to start a radio station. I was just preaching that all the time. When people ask me what I'm doing, I publish a magazine and I'm soon to open a radio station. One day, I thought he was going crazy at one point. So I did the magazine and I launched the magazine on the radio again. And here I am today. I mean, people thought I was going crazy. That wouldn't happen. The barbershop guy said, man, I never thought it would have happened. When he see the first copy, they was excited. Then came the second copy, came the third copy, and now we have we got the eight, nine issue. The publication, so it's not easy, and you do it out of pocket expense for yourself, because you don't get that, you don't get money to do media that easy in this country, so you have to do all out of pocket expenses and stuff, and we've been doing that for the last 6 years, so now we have changed. My daughter is in college now, and she's graduating radio broadcaster manager and stuff like that in April. And she's going to help take over this operation. So she have do a GoFundMe for Genesis Magazine and radio station. So that's where we are. Tomorrow we have a new program, Blacks in the Bible, by Pastor Bishop Josiah, and so on. And then we have other persons coming on stream in the next couple of months, and some intern coming from the colleges to come in and fill up the spots, and full radio and TV and magazine going on. That's where we are.
I know one of your mantra is education is liberation.
Yes, sir.
How well do you think you are doing in terms of contributing to that, in terms of enlightening people and lifting people's awareness on issues? Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, what's your major focus in terms of that kind of enlightenment, apart from the religious and so element?
Well, the religious part is always there, but the like you said, and the education liberation thing came from the revolution again. The whole idea was to educate people to liberate them. I think the more educated you are, the more liberated you are, right? And so for me, the focus, like even this present show, which has Dr. Tessa Barry, and many shows I did 2 shows with her before, and I was able to attract a number of people to the shows, and all of our panel discussions that we have on a Tuesday night a Saturday night, what we have here, again, talking point is the discussion about anything parties are happening in Grenada, in the Caribbean and the world, educating people about current events that is happening around the world. Our Tuesday night show is on marriage, helping couples who are married, having difficulty in their marriages. So it's the whole idea is to educate people, to take them from one level to the other, to leave their standard of and the mindset, to transfer that thinking, that old one to a new one. So I think we're doing really good in terms of getting that message out. It's not just about the spirit, the church aspect, but a holistic view, politics, culture, and motivation stuff. We do our motivation during the day, 24 hours of radio. So you get the gospel, you got the motivation, and people like what they see, and they love what they're hearing too. So here's the reason why we continue to do that and to keep educating people. So I think the message is getting across and people are being informed. As a matter of fact, I posted Gem FM on a Black platform, and one of the respondents pointed out that finally a radio station I can really listen to in Canada, you know, because most of the radio stations is just commercial or just hip hop or just pure like ragamuffin music. There's no
just high.
Hi, yeah. But here is Gem FM, we educating. You could get them, you could get during the day and you get a motivational piece from Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn. You could get Bishop Noel Jones or something. But you get motivation. Get the calypsos you get is educational calypsos. The song, you get the love songs, you know, the romantic portion, you get the country and western, you get the jazz portion, you get everything on Gem FM. We are one-stop radio station. You can get everything here. You know, just educating and liberating the minds of people. You can relax to some Indian music. We have deep into the Hindi, Bollywood music as well. But I have a wide listening audience from India as well. You know, we work together and someone said, John, I don't hear my music. So we end up adopting that idea of plugging in the Hindi and the Bollywood music into our programming as well. So if you're out there looking, we want to volunteer someone to do a Hindi session, you know, 1 hour of Hindi music, you know, our news or whatever on the radio station. So that's what we're looking for. Somebody from that culture that meets that Southeast Asia grouping. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we actually have a very big mix of cultures here in the Caribbean also.
Yeah.
And Dr. Barry, if I may return to you, based on the work that you do and based on that element relating to women in agriculture and so, how critical do you think it is for government policies? How does it figure, or does it figure in any significant way in your deliberations and the work that you do? Hello?
You're still muted.
Dr.
Oh, all right, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I would say that because when you look at a lot of one of the things that we as a Caribbean people, we often say that gender is not so much of an issue in the region. Mm-hmm. We see, like, if you look at some cultures, women are oftentimes, when you look at positions of women, you look at opportunities for women, etc. In certain cultures, women are often seen on the back burner. And because it's not very evident in the region, you find that oftentimes there is this notion that gender is not an issue. But when you actually speak to women, there are a number of things that they experience that they, in their own, from their own perspective, they believe that, you know, that maybe if a more concerted effort is made to their experiences, then, you know, then it can be highlighted and policies can be done to address it. And that's why I've taken it upon myself. For example, in my PhD, I would have looked at the gender aspect to agriculture, the gendered perspective to food security in terms of the contributions women make as it relates to food security, speaking from the home right up to on a policy making level. You know, what opportunities do they have given the role women play so significantly as it relates to food and nutrition security? and these things are to be highlighted. I actually did some work with the UN in providing a written document that looked at access to land, opportunities in terms of access to land for women, and how do they go about accessing lands? Because historically, lands have been passed down from a more patriarchal perspective in terms of men having control of title when they go to access loans, etc. The opportunities there to access loan, if the women do not have the title deed, then that could be a deterrent in terms of them being able to access loan for agricultural purposes, etc. So those are some of the things that have been highlighted. So in working with the UN, we were able to produce this document that actually showed the opportunities in 5 OECS countries and in terms of how the approach to getting access to government land, so that this information is readily available to them, so they do not believe that they're sidelined in terms of being able to access land, etc. And this was published by UN Women. So if you go on UN Women site, you might see an article that looks to, you know, what are some of the steps that women can take to access land, you know, from a government perspective. So those are just some of the issues. We also speak into issues such as the gender issues as it relates to on-farm work, etc. What are the facilities available on farm? How does it address, you know, issues women have in comparison to issues men might have? So, for example, if you have a large farm, what are the bathroom facilities you have on this land farm? These things that might be overlooked are issues that needs to be considered when you're looking and addressing issues that women might face within the agriculture sector. So I believe that work is important, and that this is work that allow for these things to be highlighted and for probably more concerted effort to be taken within the sector when we approach, even as it relates to the equipment use and how the equipment is designed, you know, for women, as well as in comparison to how it's designed for men. A simple thing like a spray can on the back, you know, how does it affect women within the sector in comparison to how it affects men in the sector? Do you design it in such a way that it's not too cumbersome for women to carry, and that they can go about in their activities as normal? And Pablo, I usually give an example of that very same thing from my own personal experience. I remember when I was teaching at St. Michael's RC School, we didn't have men on staff except the principal. So I was basically involved heavily in the 4-H and so, and we were given a handheld rotavator to assist in the 4-H gardening, etc. And they came to demonstrate how the rotavator could be used, etc. And so then a teacher had to actually take part in the demonstration, learn the process so that we would be able to use the handheld rotavator for ourselves. So when it came for me to actually do the practical aspect of it, that rotavator went with me because of the weight of it. You know, so even things like how a particular equipment is designed for farm activities, how is it engendered, you know, in terms of assisting with, right? So this work, as simple as it might seem, is very significant when we look from a gender perspective.
Oh, wow. You know, I guess typically you don't find these kind of considerations being taken on board when such tools and equipment are being produced, you know, because women, the woman element of it is often not really considered based on what you're saying there. And there's some lessons here that ought to be learned from that. Is the annual budget of the particular country of any consequence in this regard, in terms of enabling women to afford that kind of to get access to financing and stuff like that?
Well, to be honest, I haven't looked at the specific disbursement in terms of the overall budget, you know, for if we're looking from the Grenada perspective, yeah. So yes, agriculture is a priority as it relates to nation building for this particular government. That's what I gathered from, you know, the
from the pronouncement.
From the budget, yes. So agriculture is a priority. And of course, I didn't look significantly at the finer details in how this 54.3 million thereabout would be
but
designated.
in a general sense, how critical is the overall budget, the allocations and so, you know, in terms of taking care of and making financing accessible to women in particular?
I think it's important. It's very critical. We have a lot of women farmers. We have a lot of young women who are interested in agriculture and looking for opportunities. And when I say interested in agriculture, mind you, it's not just on farm. Agriculture is very broad. When we look at the concept of agriculture, we speak from farm to fork. So we're engaging in not just the actual farm production, but we're also looking at opportunities in value addition, agro-processing, even the services sector, the logistic aspect, the research sector, you know, and we do have a number of women who are interested, and some have been able to access in training opportunities, etc. So I think the budget is critical, and there is something called a gender sensitive budget. And when you're looking at budget from a gender perspective, there is something called a gender sensitive budget, and that means that the budget looks specifically on how it addresses issues from a gendered perspective. And sometimes when we hear the concept gender, most times it is taken out of context, and you know, and look and persons see concepts such as transgender, etc. But it's not necessarily from that perspective. Gender is far, you know, diverse. And when we talk about things from a gendered perspective there from the sector, we're looking at addressing how we view issues differently and how we do things differently. What are our experiences that we have? Because remember, when we look at the roles of women, it's not just the productive role. We also have to look at the reproductive role and the community role. So women have what we refer to as the triple role: the productive role, the community role, the reproductive role. And they have to basically marry all three in what they do. So these are things that I think when you look at a gender sensitive budget, it would consider, you know, all the roles and how budgetary allocations can assist in developing from such a perspective.
You mentioned a while ago about research and the whole issue of value added. Now, two questions here. How critical is research to our overall agricultural products, you know, and where are we in that regard, you know, and what are some of the things you think that can be done to enhance it? And on the other end, the whole issue of market assets, access. If we are in that state of secondary products and so, what kind of markets are available, you know, out there, and what are the prospects for expansion in that area?
Well, Pablo, to answer this last set of questions, it goes back to the first question you asked me with research and how critical is research. Okay. Because in order for us to gain an understanding of what the market, what markets are available and how we can access these markets, research is important. So you do the market research. And so this type of research can guide the direction in which you take in terms of development, what you produce, even when you produce it, what sort of value addition is actually in demand, you know? What sort of value addition can be created? And then you also need to do the research to find out whether or not people would be interested in certain things. So there are a number of different research that can take place. So when you ask the question, how critical is research? Research actually guides development. It guides policy framework. It guides what we do, how we do it, when we should do it. So research is what's supposed to basically lead the way forward, because we ought to be, and you know, Pablo, I think one of our weaknesses here is that we are often not guided by data. We are often not guided by research. So we do things because, quote unquote, we believe that this is good for the people. This is something that might be needed, but how do we know it's needed? It is needed. Have we done any research on it? You know? So the idea of research is extremely critical, not just for accessing the market, but to know what market is out there, where the markets are, you know, and even in terms of how we design our policy frameworks. And policy is extremely important in guiding development, guiding nation building. You know, if we were to look at the theme in terms of this discussion here, and not just policy, but implementation of those policies. So the idea of research is extremely important because it guides the way forward. And it is something that you can build on when you know, and that's why, you know, that particular project that we are currently on, when just out of the interviews that we've done thus far, we saw how policy was one of the most important strategies that was utilized for agricultural development during the revolutionary period, and how the whole framework of policy guided agricultural development. And they had policy in relation to financing for agriculture, policy in relation to education for agriculture, policy in relation to marketing for agriculture, policy in relation to trade for agriculture, and policy in relation to production and production development for agriculture. So we saw the whole idea of policy during the revolution, and that was a lesson learned, you know? So the idea of history is extremely important because it guides development and it guides how we build, it guides the way forward. So I think it is extremely critical. In terms of where we are as it relates to history, I think we're still not having. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
When we look at where we are, and this is from my perspective, I don't think there is even a drop in the bucket as it relates to research in Grenada, and not just from the ministerial or from the institutional perspective, but also even from us as a people, because when you approach people with certain questions, and I can give you just the census, for example, Pablo, if some people are refusing to answer certain questions, and census is a form of research. Yes, it allows for the country to know, for the authorities to know, you know, what state we are in. So then it would guide policy development. And people are refusing to answer questions. Yes, so when we look at
all the time.
So when we look at the idea of research, it's not just from the institutional perspective that we are lacking. We are lacking from us as a people in how we respond to the idea of research. If somebody comes to us asking questions, trying to garner information that could actually shape and build, we are very hesitant.
Okay.
Wow.
From your vantage points and from your own kind of research, have you found that there is demand for any particular products, secondary products coming from our country, any niche markets that we can target?
Well, what I can say is I've done some work as it relates to our spices.
Okay.
And I know, yes, and I know that our cocoa products, you know, and I think even if we can meet our domestic market and then further, you know, into the export market, the external market, there are opportunities for our spices, and not just the raw spices, but the value addition from our spices, and as well as our natural cocoa products. And even if you look at some of the things we re-import from our raw material, that in itself would give you an idea of the types of market opportunities that might exist. For example, you see, even with soursop and soursop products, you see that there is that opportunity out there now for our soursop. And in recent times, I read that we would now be able to export our mangoes again to the
Yes, I saw that recently.
Right. Yeah, to the US market, which means that there is a demand out there. And if we have the proper standards in place and the proper quality so in place, then that's an opportunity. And I do hope it would create an opportunity for value addition, not in the sense that we re-import what our mangoes would make out there, but what we ourselves can generate from our mangoes here. So there is opportunity, but again, we go back to the whole perspective of research, Pablo.
Yes.
We can't just pull out of a hat that, you know, that there's a market out there for that if we don't do the research. If you see what's happening with St. Vincent now in dashing production, St. Vincent is now exporting a significant percentage of dashing because they would have done the research. Yeah, they would have done the research, and then the government now supports development, supports the farmers, encourage farmers by giving them supporting opportunities as it relates to getting involved in dashing production so that they would be able to meet the external markets. So that I think is you know, is important. But what I've seen from my drop in the bucket, there is a market out there for all things that are locally produced. People reach out to me. The potential is there. Yeah. Okay. People reach out to me for local chocolate. People reach out to me for our local cocoa powder. Even I struggled to find Juve powder on the market in a few weeks ago on the domestic market. And people reaching, you know, the question is, are we producing enough to support the domestic market as well as the external market? Yes, yeah. So those are things.
Yeah. No, I was saying that you come again to data collection. If you don't know the market, you produce not enough or you overproduce.
Right.
So you need to know how much people consume on a monthly or yearly basis. You know?
What's the research? So the research is needed. And the question is, do we have a research unit in our Ministry of Agriculture? And if so, are we going to have a research, you know, a research unit? Because this is needed, even in terms of the pests and diseases that affect our farmers. And mind you, our farmers can guide research, because they are the ones that are experiencing certain things, what's happening to their soil, what's happening to their plants. And so the research would be needed to be better able to help them to address some of the issues that they are facing. Now we have a lot of funding opportunities for research in the area of climate, impact of climate change, impact of what's happening, and, you know, preparing us for the impact of climate change, etc. So it's research to guide how climate change impact us in the region in terms of our agricultural production, etc. And then what can we do to address the impact from a negative perspective, you know? So again, research is key.
Speaking of climate, we have the SIEP program, Climate Smart and Rural Enterprise Program. How significant do you think that program is to this whole issue that you just raised?
This program is extremely important, very important, because why? It provides opportunities for training It provides opportunities for knowledge generation and knowledge dissemination, as well as opportunities for farmers to be better able prepared for mitigation, as well as to deal with the impact. So I think that the SIAP project, the SIAP program, is a very important project and program for Grenada, and as well as, you know, in outside of the region, because when you look at small island development states, which we are at, whilst we may not contribute towards what too much into what contributes to climate change and the impact of climate change, we are the ones who most often feel the impact of it by nature of our geography, by nature of who we are, by nature of how our countries are situated. We're significantly impacted. So both from the marine environment as well as from, you know, from the farming perspective. So the idea of SIAP, and SIAP addresses our fisher folks as well as our farmers and issues that they may face as it relates to climate smart agriculture. So it doesn't just prepare them, it prepares them in terms of mitigating opportunities as well as how to address the impact. And SIAP also plays that role in terms of the trainers type of approach. So the persons who are there, like the extension officers, the ministerial authorities, etc., that supports agricultural development, they are also a part of this whole idea of SIAP. And you would see oftentimes when you look at the news that extension officers are trained in this particular area to be a supportive structure to farmers climate smart agriculture and opportunities read that. We have to change the way in which we operate, and SIAP is one of the institutions that would help in that direction. So I think it's extremely important.
What would you say are some of the most critical elements that's needed for rural development if we are going to have a strong rural economic base? What would you say apart from or in addition to agriculture? Because you just mentioned our marine space, and there's this notion, in fact, our Prime Minister recently on Beyond the Headline program, he was speaking about the fact that yes, most of our space, what makes up the nation of Grenada, we have more water than land, you know, and we have not utilized it to the max. You know, what do you think can be done, or what are some of the elements you think that need to be instituted or need to be added to create that sustainable rural economy?
Well, as you say, first of all, I can't say apart from agriculture, because agriculture is even not fully developed in the rural space. Okay. So we need to focus on actually developing agriculture in the rural space, not just from the productive sector, but also from the value addition sector. So training opportunities, educational opportunities, our infrastructure. The rural infrastructure is extremely important in terms of our road network, access to, you know, where the farms, etc. are. Then I also believe that the idea of job creation, not from providing a job, but allowing for opportunities for SMEs, small business development, etc., is extremely important for rural development. We have capturing the culture and enabling the culture to be developed into a revenue generating perspective is important for rural development and rural communities. And let me just explain a little more by what I mean with capturing the culture and enabling it to generate. We had Saraka yesterday. I'm not sure how many Grenadians knew about that. And you know, that's right. That's a cultural thing that can be expanded and utilized for rural development. In terms of visitors to the activity, in terms of highlighting the activity from a national perspective, and even we as a people. How many people came from St. George's? How many came from St. John's? How many came? And then right there in that space, you generate opportunities for small business. you know, to create, to generate revenue. We have Munich as a niche in terms of the cassava production, and you know, the idea of looking at how we could develop that space. So the idea of small business development, so persons can create jobs for themselves as well as create jobs for others. The idea of infrastructural development within the rural space, and infrastructural development that would support agricultural development. So for example, some farmers, they would go to their lands, and the idea of getting back with their produce, by the time they get back to a market, it's not, some of their produce would have been lost because of spoilage, you know? The idea of post-harvest handling, how we manage post-harvest handling, and even developing the natural spaces that we have, the environmental attraction. So, for example, recently I went to a place in Marquis, and there's this beautiful site down there that speaks to relics from plantation, like, you know, our how you call them, meals, etc. And even the idea of where the river meets the sea, that natural environment that is there and can be developed into a park, a space. So recreational development, not just for not just for the locals, but also for persons visiting. We have a lot of tourist places that are attractive to locals as well as to visitors. These needs development in terms of accessing them as well as making them attractive. So those are just a few. And then again, we also have to look at the human development perspective. And when we develop and empower our people, we provide opportunities for development within the rural community. So I cry over the lack of a national library, the lack of a community library, the lack of, you know, these sort of things I think are important for rural development. And I think that's just, you know, a few. So the infrastructural space, the idea of training and opportunities to empower the persons within those communities to harness their own local talents, their own local opportunities. I can just take you to the community of Birch Grove, where I am from. We have about 3 bakeries up there. There's one bakery, there's one gentleman that is making pumpkin bread. You know?
Is that the Sandy guy?
No, it's Coban, Valan Coban.
Okay.
Right. He's making pumpkin bread. And I mean, he's looking for the proper machinery to help so that he could, because it's so much in a demand now that the amount, he only makes it once a week, and he's looking for the adequate machinery that could help him increase production. So even things like that to help in terms of small business development, etc. Those are things that we can, you know, help in terms of assisting in the rural space.
Okay. Brother John, now you live in Canada.
Yes.
And what are you finding in terms of demand for Caribbean products coming from the Caribbean? How in tune do you find our people out there to be in relation to these kind of products coming from the Caribbean?
Well, I think people generally looking for home local stuff from Grenada. One of the things that people look for a lot in the grocery stores is breadfruit. And that is something that is being looked for all the time. Not us stores, but a lot of Grenadian people who want to make an oil down looking for breadfruit, looking for bananas that is really good bananas. Sometimes you get bananas, and by the time you get it almost ripe, and you can bring it in. So they want something that is really good and that they could use and hold it there for a while, that they could use to make the oil on the saltfish and banana breakfast in the morning. There is the spices that people want, nutmeg powders and stuff. There's not, something going to store, there isn't any. So I think there is a need for those kind of things. I remember, Tessa, you correct me here, when B-Man spoke of us doing a supply chain in Canada, one supply chain said, no, we want more. We want to supply all our chain stores with all the products from Grenada, but Grenada couldn't supply everything.
The demand.
Yeah, the demand.
Yeah.
So engaging other Caribbean countries to partner Grenada to make this, to supply, to fill the demands. Unfortunately, the ocean collapsed, so that didn't happen. But there is always a need for West Indian, Grenadian products among the Grenadian community. Right? Even look at the sugar cake and stuff. There's people who make it here. There's another thing that is in demand here, but we don't have enough supply. There's one lady who make coconut oil, no additives, straight up. I mean, wait a minute, I have a bottle of I think outside. She make coconut oil, local traditions. And Anastasia Mitchell, she makes coconut oil, right? And she packaged it in this package, right? And she sells for $8 a bottle. Right, it's Granny's inspired coconut oil, and she need more coconut. You know what I mean? To feel, yeah, seriously, she need more coconut because she does that, and she bottle it. Her children makes other products from other coconut oil product as well, lipsticks and so on. The whole family is a cottage industry by itself, right? So there's a demand for products from Grenada, and if she get a proper product supply of coconut from Grenada on a regular basis, she have a small machine that she grind the coconut and everything already. So they just need more supply of the coconut. So that's one thing I know for sure. The source up, people talk about all the time that people need source up. So then the source up is seen not from Grenada is not full, so to speak, you know. It's still hard, it's still young. Some of the avocados, you know, we're not getting the real McCoy. So a lot of people, I think people looking for real good choices. I think Grenada have one of the best products that we could think about in the Caribbean, and we could be able to do like better research and development, data collection, and so on, like Tessa was referring to, that will aid Grenada in supplying the niche market that is available. I think the market is here. It's just a matter of doing the research, put that all together, and make the case for supplying the Ghanaian market with the product from Grenada. I think there's something that needs to be done about that. Somebody need to take the charge and do the research and get it done. But I think the demand is there. It's just that there's no supply. Legal, okay. Yeah.
Brother John, I know that typically yeah, go ahead, Dr.
I want to piggyback just before you ask Brother John the next question, in terms of supply. And Pablo, that is an issue that affects value addition seriously. Because I remember I don't know how many of you remember, at one time we used to have seasoning, bottled seasoning produced by some women from the St. Patrick's area. And this used to be on the shelves of a number of supermarkets in Grenada. And I remember when I engaged them during my research, one of the things that they indicated was that they had trouble accessing the raw product to the raw material to meet the demand. So yes, we want value addition, but again, we need the increase in productivity and the consistency with the increase in productivity that would help assist in terms of the value addition. So I just wanted to make that point there with that example.
So essentially you're saying there needs to be an element of planning and coordination in terms of getting us to that state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Brother John, I know that you cannot be sitting here and not have a question for Dr. Barry.
Well, you know, I've been so engaged with her so much in question asking for the public, for public knowledge.
Public knowledge, yes, definitely so.
I know that you have spoken to several individuals concerning the research that you have done and you're doing, and the project you have. You also said in our conversation a couple of weeks ago that you're planning to have a symposium. What is the nature of the symposium?
Okay, well, when you say the symposium, you mean the National Agriculture Expo?
Yes, yes.
Right. So the objective of this expo, we don't have a date yet because it's supposed to culminate, you know, the whole project, the activity. But the objective is to utilize a day to highlight agriculture from farm to fork. So you would have on display primary producers, you would have on display input suppliers, you would have on display value agro-processors and persons who are involved. You would also have the services side of it. So persons who are engaged in agricultural services. So it doesn't necessarily, they're not necessarily, so even for example, the marketing and research aspect, you would have that. So that the whole idea is to present a one day, you visit, and you should be able to, you know, get access to everything agricultural related at that day. It's like a national expo. Now, the idea is that it would generate opportunities for those who would be participating in the expo. So even market opportunities. So for example, you might be visiting the expo and meet a farmer and realize that he's producing that particular crop. And you may want to be able to find out how you could get in touch with him, how you could be able to access that crop that is growing. So even put in touch and producers with processors, to put in touch, you know, restaurants, etc., with those who are the producers, etc. So all that is that's the general idea of the expo.
Okay. Next question. I have a couple of questions here. One of the things, the Brush Grove situation with the bread, the 3 different bakeries. In Brush Grove alone, 3 bakeries. Commenting on the cooperative mindset. You know, a lot of large companies we see outside here, they are cooperatives. They have come together, put all the resources together, and in one space, they develop a bigger market and you know, more control. Is there any idea floating around of putting those 3 bakeries together to form a cooperative where you could better produce and have better quality control to serve a wider community?
I'm not aware that there are any currently, but I think even with these 3 on a separate perspective, they're actually doing well because of the location of Brush Grove. Everybody travels on that route.
On that route, yeah.
Yeah, so because of the location, you know, these 3 are actually thriving, you know, but they just need to meet the demand. But in terms of the cooperative aspect, I'm not aware of any discussions surrounding that, even from my perspective or those entrepreneurs' perspective. But it's a good prospect to look at, you know, in terms of developing a cooperative and seeing how it could be, you know, further designed to assist in the further development of these guys.
I know that we spoke earlier on about the mango market is open by North America again. We know people have mango in their lands, mango trees here, there, everywhere. Is there gonna be, I think about probably having a mango farm, you know, where people could have, let's say, farmer X growing Ceylon or farmer B growing long mangoes, and properly cultivated mango farms. Like people have, in Canada, you have wine farms, right? So we could drive to Niagara Falls and there's different farmers have different type of grapes for different type of wine. They don't produce the same type of grape. So in Grenada, for example, instead of, okay, I have 3 mangoes in my backyard, I could probably sell to the Maclean boat or somewhere to get shipped out, right? One of the things that, as I hear the market open, how organized is the farmers to produce or to set up to have these mangoes shipped with the quality that is demanded on the outside?
So what I think this is an avenue to create the opportunity, because when you look at economics, we're talking about forward and backward linkages. So when you have that market development, you create an opportunity. I remember in one of the speeches of our current Prime Minister, he spoke about, imagine that you cannot see an entire spice farm or an entire citrus farm or an entire mango farm, which means that he already is, forward thinking in that perspective. So I do believe that it's something that would be encouraged from the policy making perspective. And I just hope that our farmers can jump on the idea, and jump on the opportunity to look at how they can do producing in a bulk setting.
My next
but
question.
mind you, even if we in the meantime, because what I think can happen in the meantime is that we create the quality standards and control mechanism that we have that particular point. As for example, in Trinidad, you have an organization referred to as NAMDEFCO that does wholesale. So farmers bring their produce to NAMDEFCO, and from NAMDEFCO, you can do wholesale. You can buy wholesale. So for example, NAMDEFCO could take in all of those who produce mangoes, ensure that the mangoes are at a particular standard. So even if I have a small amount, we usually say one cocoa full of basket. So even if I have a small amount and you have a small amount and Pablo have a small amount, before we get to that stage of, an entire farm, then those small amounts, given that we have proper standards, quality control, etc., can be, in other words, what marketing board
idea
goal, should be. Yeah.
Right. My next question to you is, and we often hear, even as we speak, probably somebody said agriculture is old, and people here we talk about agriculture, they're looking at speed and fork and stuff and things like that, right? But earlier on, you mentioned the different aspects of agriculture, the research department, data collection and the production of the byproducts of the natural resources from the cocoa, from the mango, from the sauerkraut, the leaves, all this stuff like that. Agriculture is bigger than just the fork and the hookah mentality. How much effort is being made? I know I've seen some of your work, but how much effort has been made to get people, younger generation, to not just see agriculture as a cutlass and hoe, fork and spade mentality, but some way they could get involved at the research level in agriculture, to get the data collection level. How much effort is been made at this point in Grenada as we speak?
Well, I frankly, I don't think enough effort is being made. I think we can, from an education perspective, we can highlight more of the areas that are available within the sector, the opportunities that are available in the sector, what areas students can get involved. We have the environmental aspect, the whole idea of sustaining our environment and ensuring that our environment, we farm in a sustainable environment for future generations. So even students who really do not want to actually get involved in the actual farming, they can look at the idea of environmental development, environmental science, etc. That's one niche. So the idea of creating more awareness of the various opportunity along the entire chain, even in the food and nutrition aspect, because part of it is this is also linked to agriculture. The nutritional, and if we look at Grenada, for example, we have very high incidence of non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, etc. And that is heavily related to lifestyle, including the types of food and so that we eat. So even that from the nutritional perspective, we can have persons who can engage and find themselves involved in those fields. So not enough, I think, is being done as it relates to awareness of the opportunities there are within those particular field. I have been involved, for example, in academia as it relates to agriculture, and academia has taken me, the academic perspective of it, which research, it has taken me many places. It has gotten me the network I have created and I have gotten involved in just through research is extensive. So I think I am trying to do my part in terms of, creating awareness, but I do believe that more can be done from a national perspective in letting people see what the opportunities there are. And we also could look at the scholarship opportunities that might be available, for study in the different areas. Sometimes I remember when I was at UWI, at the time when I was studying at UWI, if I got 5 students from Grenada who were studying agriculture, I would have gotten a lot, So even that, and the few that were there might have been those who actually funded themselves. So opportunities, and for scholarship opportunities, funding opportunities, and not just speaking from a governmental perspective, even from a private sector perspective. Who can you train, and in what areas can you train them? All these things need to be looked at so that our young persons can see the opportunities there are or there, really sector across the entire chain.
Right. All right. Because one of the things that another thing that I see happening out here is that there's a shift from the regular milk to coconut milk, the actual coconut milk in the market. I myself don't drink much of those skim milk anymore. I get almond milk and coconut milk, soya bean milk and stuff like that. That's what I use now. There's a lot of people moving towards that, away from the regular skim milk. Is that something that could be in your part of the world and your research in Grenada? How much of that is in demand too in Grenada? Is there a market developed for that? Because sometimes if something has not been introduced, people don't really need it, right? Until somebody introduces it to the market. What are the things that you think that need to be introduced to Grenada? Because outside here, everyone want a healthier lifestyle. Less fatty food, less this, less that. And where we are in Grenada, we have a lot of natural resources. Still, we could just use naturally to cook and to make, like, for example, behind me here, it's a lady from Grenada living in New York who produces those spices, right? Spice oil flavors. And I name it Becky, and I add a piece to it, Grenada in a jar. So when you see Grenada in a jar, that line came from me when I was interviewing her. So spice oil flavors, and I said Grenada in a jar. So that lady, she's producing this, and she's doing pretty good. But how much of other people that, the other thing that is really natural that we need to promote in Grenada that is being done, because
we do have a number of persons that are engaging in actually making stuff. I don't know if you've heard about Mr. Trevor Modeste.
Yes.
He's doing quite a lot in terms of the fruits, utilizing our fruits to make things like milk, to make things like the flour, the powder, etc. There is a young lady called the Farmer's Daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing flour, different types of flour. We have persons who are doing teas, so locally made teas from all sorts of leaves, from the different spices like the turmeric and the ginger. So we have young persons who are actually into these teas, and this shows that there are persons out there who are making things from what we have locally. The issue is how extensive are they producing, on what scale?
Yes.
Right. And what are the market opportunities for them outside of Grenada? And even domestically, how much are we using those things that are produced locally? And then one might say that these things are very expensive, because if you look to buy a pack, probably a pack cassava flour or sweet potato flour compared to another packet, the amount you would get from wheat flour is pretty small, and the amount you would make. And if we can find ways to reduce the cost of production, so that these things become more accessible to the ordinary person. So even we have to think about helping these young persons who are producing these things locally so that they would be affordable to the ordinary man. So it's not just about producing, but it's also about ensuring that it's affordable to, you know, an individual just going about their ordinary lives to buy, you know, to buy these local produce. So we do have a number of persons and opportunities. We have to make the environment enabling for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to create that sort of enabling environment in terms of a support structure, support system. I listen to some of our agro processors who indicate that sometimes they do not know where to go, you know, for certain things that they want to enhance their business. So that sort of support structure is needed. I do know that the Ministry of Agriculture is currently looking into a support structure for agro processors in Grenada. I am privy to that information. They're particularly looking at that so that there's that opportunity to help them along the way in terms of, you know, helping them to improve their business and opportunities, etc. So we have a number of young people who are actually involved in local production, but we need the scale of production is what we need to be enhanced so that they can increase the domestic market as well as, you know, on the export market.
Right. Finally, before Carl will come back to you, in terms of funding for those small cottage industries, you know, the monies always be a difficult thing to come by. You know, people operate under their own finances that they have in terms of, because when they go to the bank, it's not cash not really available. I know there is certain the government have different projects, financial projects in Grenada, where business persons can go in and get the grants and so on. How much of those industries are really, if you know any, that is utilizing that opportunity to get the grant funding that is available to them and to improve and to expand their business, to develop, development? Yeah.
I am not too aware of those who might have attempted to access, you know, that type of opportunity. So that's not information that I'm too privy to. But, you know, it's something that ought to be highly communicated, you know, widely publicized, so that at least they would be aware of the opportunities that exist and then how they can access these opportunities. But in terms of being aware of which organizations, which agro processors, which SMEs would have accessed these opportunities, I'm not too aware of that.
I will only ask the question because I know the government have made recent communicates about the funding for those programs and stuff like that, you know, so people get involved and get the funding, go there and fund the necessary peoples and get the fund that they need to strengthen their business financially and to get new equipment, what they need to get. The gentleman say need the machinery to improve or to produce more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but what I can say with that is concerned. For example, the CES program. And I think that there's that opportunity, but mind you, the amount of money that is available is not enough for the amount of persons who wants to access that. So I think what we need is to know where the funding is, and it's not just we also have to help our youth to be able to, you know, I just want to step back here to one of the persons who I interviewed. I am not going to drop that name, no. For the revolutionary agriculture during the revolutionary period, one of the things he mentioned to me was that one of the policy they had towards agricultural development was a policy as it relates to finance support. Mm-hmm. And so the opportunities as it relates to the type of loan they can access, the interest rates associated with these loans. And, you know, so in other words, there was a policy that linked the banking system, that linked other financial institutions, etc., with programs specific to agricultural development. So I think it's not just about giving a grant or providing, you know, monies, but also providing the environment, the enabling environment that would allow for me, for myself, I can access a loan that I would be able to service based on my based on my development, based on my organizations, based on my business, whether it's a small business, a medium size or large. So the financial agency has that particular program, and that was one of the things that aided in the success of agriculture during the revolutionary period, based on the interview I had with a particular individual who was involved in policy and policy development and guidance during that particular period. Financing was linked, and opportunities as it related to financing was linked to agriculture also, the policy guidance for that. So things like our, for example, our Caribbean Development Bank or Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, they would have specific programs. And so in terms of allowing them to access certain loans that would not be too much of a burden, but at the same time, you give them that sort of responsibility that they have a loan, that they develop their business in such a way that they can service that loan from the business. So you give that whole, overall development. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pablo, I gotta get back to you.
Yes,
I want to ask just one thing. I know there was Grain Coda, there was ART, and there was another agency. I can't remember the name right now. But how much of that agency out there now, individual who can write up projects for farmers, so that could aid in the development of the agricultural sector instead of going to the bank where they get funding from abroad? Right to institution that could assist them financially with finances and training for the particular area of development for Grenada.
I know Grain Coda is still heavily involved in that because currently we are working with Grain Coda on one of our projects. I know for sure Grain Coda is still involved in that and still finding these types of opportunities for. They may not have highlighted so much, but they're still involved. Even through the Ministry of Agriculture, there are opportunities that could come through funding, even the SIRE program, how they can access certain opportunities through the SIRE program from the ministerial perspective or statutory body perspective. But I don't know of any other too much of, yeah. There are some ones in the region that I can't too much remember their names now, but for example, in Trinidad, there's an NGO called One Seed for Change, which I am a part of. I was down there when I was in Trinidad. I was part of One Seed for Change, and we're now trying to establish it in Grenada so that the opportunity could be there. I'm also involved with what is referred to as the F2F, or the Farmer to Farmer program. I was involved in it in Trinidad, but we're now trying to see if it could in some way reach to Grenada. But it was a program associated with Purdue University, where they looked at training opportunities for farmers along the value chain, not just farmers, persons involved in agro processes. So there are some regional ones, some international ones. So organizations such as AICA and FAO, these organizations generate opportunities, or they get funding for opportunities that can assist, and they have contributed quite significantly in assisting and helping farmers. So the Food and Agricultural Organizations, the AICA, IFAD, for example. So the SIRE program is through funding from IFAD, which is the International Fund for Agricultural Development. So there are, some regional, international, and local, one or two local organizations, but I'm not too much aware of plenty local organizations. I have just started on that trend. So I just registered what I call JRI consultancy, which is just research it consultancy. And the idea is for us to look at funding opportunities that could actually be directed towards assisting in any way towards agricultural development. So that particular funding that we just got that would be directed towards the workshop and training opportunities would come through JRI consultancy.
Okay. Pablo?
Yes, Brother John? Back to me? Hello?
Yeah, are you there?
Okay, yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah, good. And there's someone live asking to join to ask a question. anyone want to join the live, want to ask a question. I think Tessa might know who he is. He's from Bursgrove too.
No problem.
He's asking to join, if you could join the conversation. His name is, oh my goodness, I just lost it there. Lawrence Joseph, Tessa.
Lawrence Joseph from Bursgrove?
Yeah, I think Upper Capital or something like that. Yeah.
I might know the face when I see who it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to make a, but if you want to call in, you can call in. Again, my number is 437-980-7467. You could call in and come on in. Yeah. Have you
I'm just gonna take off the video there a bit so that I could put on my charger.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Pablo.
Okay. Yes. So, Dr. Barry.
Yeah, she took off. Yeah, she'll be back. She was charging up your phone. Yeah, she's charging her phone. Just gonna put her phone to charge.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. I just wanted to put the charger on because it came up with a notification.
A lot has been said about the need for standards, that we have to be able to meet particular standards in order to access some of these markets. How receptive have you found our producers and so to be towards making those adjustments to meeting such standards?
To be honest, Pablo, I have not delved into that, aspect in terms of them being, how receptive they are. But I know people want their produce sold. So I'm going here on the notion that because you want your produce to be sold, then you would want to abide by the standards or the quality regulations that that are put out. So I think if given the opportunities, people can be quite receptive. I have not done any, research in that area in terms of perception, in terms of, how they are there. But I do believe that, for example, a lot of our farmers sell to IGA, and they accept that there is a certain quality and standard that they accept, and those who want to sell to them, they meet those quality and standards. So I do believe that once you want your produce sell, that you would meet the quality and standards to do it. So I do believe that there could be a sort of receptive approach to that.
We see the rounding up of the Marketing and National Importing Board. How critical do you think this is to, farmers and their ability to get the products out there to meet markets? And given the fact of what MNIB was supposed to be handling, and that they are supposed to have been taking in significant quantities of produce and so from farmers, what kind of impact do you think that can have? And what is your what kind of prospect do you see in terms of the entity that is to replace it?
I believe that this current administration is aware of how important an institution and organization such as Marketing Board is, and they may have garnered that from these consultations that they would have had. I myself attended a couple of the consultations virtually and both virtually and in person. I listened to what farmers were saying, what persons who have gotten the benefits from Marketing Board, and how important and strategic such an organization is. And so I think it would have an impact currently, but we have to create that space that would improve what it is that exists now, so that we would be able to access the benefits of an institution such as Marketing Board. So I think, sometimes we might feel a little pinch now for betterment, So hopefully this can be addressed in as short a space as possible, in as short a time as possible, to bring back an entity that supports the farmer in all perspective, not just from the primary producer perspective, but also from the retail end as it relates to the value addition, locally produced stuff.
Given what we understood marketing board to have been responsible for in relation to farmers and their produce, and given the new entity that is in the making, what kind of focus do you think it is really necessary to realize the full potential of our farming capabilities and providing the kind of needs and satisfying the needs of the farmers and the whole issue of market access and that kind of thing? What kind of focus do you think is required to get us to that stage?
I think we need an entity, and I'm speaking here from my own, personal perspective.
Yes, so your own perspective.
I think we need an entity that would help in terms of domestic access, helping us in terms of domestic markets, as well as the export market, as well as the value addition market, as well as an entity that would help as it relates to post-service handling, so that standards, what we produce out there, as well as an entity as it relates to educating the populace about, the local, what is produced and how do we utilize what is produced. So we need that, as the name says, marketing and national. I asked someone the question the other day, why do we say marketing and national importing board and not marketing and national exporting board? in the sense that we need export market. In other words, we need to find the opportunities that exist outside as well as domestic for our farmers, So, and also in terms of guiding the local market, what is produced, how it is produced, because what we see oftentimes is that we have sometimes glut on the market in some produce, and sometimes again there's that high scarcity on the market. And so we need an entity that will look at where we can have that space where even when there's scarcity, we might find it in the value addition, in the so things like proper storage, opportunities for proper storage, opportunities for processing, opportunities for improved standard and quality in local production, and the market opportunities, both from the domestic market as well as finding opportunities in terms of the export market. Also, I do believe that and that one is from my own perspective also. What about the cost of input supplies? The input supplies mainly that our producers would use, and if there's an opportunity where these input supplies can be made available to them at probably a reduced price, that would also reduce the cost of production for them. An entity that could look into that also.
Now, speaking about inputs, where are we and how significant do you think it is for us to be looking at, and what role do you think it can play in our overall agricultural production, the whole issue of organic farming? Where are we in this regard?
I can tell you we have a far way to go where that is concerned. I was engaged in a research in latter part of 2019 into 2020 that looked at phasing out the use of HHPs, which is highly hazardous pesticides and highly hazardous, things that farmers use in the whole production that are probably not too environmentally friendly, and one of the things that came out in that research is the opportunities for alternatives. So if we tell farmers do not use that, what is there to replace it so that they can replace it with this synthetic fertilizer, etc. What amount we have and how large scale do we have it? If you tell them do not use certain pesticides, what do we have to replace that pesticide? And it came up lacking is that there is a high level of inadequacy in terms of the amount as it relates to organic manure, etc., that can be used on a large scale. So we may have it on small scale. We have a few persons who produce these things on a small scale, but you need consistency in terms of it being available on a large scale that farmers would be able to access these things. So we are far way to go from, yes, you want people to phase out using certain, like the synthetic fertilizers, etc., or HHPs, as we call them, highly hazardous pesticides, things that they use to get rid of pests and diseases. We want them to phase out of these things. We want them to engage in integrated pest management. But in other words, how much are we, where are we in that space to allow that to be utilized on a large scale? And we're still very far off from that.
And what kind of interventions do you think then are required in order to get us moving in a more structured way in that direction?
Well, we need we need the research, Mm-hmm. We need the persons, we need the investors. So because to produce such things on a large scale, we would need quite considerable, input in order to make it viable. So you need the investors, you need the research, you also need the education, because farmers usually say, this is working for me, why do I have to change? Why do I have to use something else? If I'm getting, quality out of that, if I'm getting a particular yield out of that, why do you want me to use something else? So we need the research, we need the education. So you need the policy also, the policy framework, because you're talking about importation standards, you're talking about, yes, we're living in a free trade world, but there are certain things that can be put in place that would enable, that would probably prevent too much of importation of certain products. But if we put the policy and standards in place, then we must have something locally that they can turn to or they can access to as alternatives to what. And it goes the same, it goes in tandem with what we eat. For example, you tell us, don't eat too much processed foods, processed meat. But then what do we have to replace it? What are the alternatives that we have locally so that persons can say, let's eat that instead of that? And how accessible are the alternatives to us? You tell us don't use too much wheat flour, but how accessible is sweet potato flour, is cassava flour, is, and the alternatives, right? The alternative need to be accessible and affordable. And that is still, we're still far off from affordable and accessible alternatives to replace those things that we are trying to phase out.
Well, some alternatives keep coming up, and alternative can be related to other elements of things.
Like substitutes then.
Yes. But I'm bringing it to a different context now. We've had all of these rains in recent times, and this has killed many of our short crop farmers. What kind of alternative forms of agriculture do you think we can put in place to mitigate some of these situations? Because I know farmers who put down trees upon trees, and I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been lost these few months as a consequence of the amount of rains that we've had. What kind of intervention do you think can help us to address?
Well, I know SIAP is doing a lot of training, and so in terms of mitigating efforts. So sometimes the type of crops that is planted around certain times, those that might be more resistant to flood and the maybe more protective agriculture, from that perspective, the use of shade housing, etc. the use of technology. So for example, you see a lot of hydroponics, and so where things are grown not necessarily on the ground, so vertical agriculture, for example. So the technology, you know, getting in the idea of getting involved in, as we say, climate smart agriculture. You know, what are the different alternatives that can be utilized? So you don't necessarily have to plant on the ground so that you have issues with flooding. Or even if you plant on the ground, how do you plant and where do you plant if you're constantly planting flood-prone areas, etc. Or certain crops, if it can be planted in a vertical manner, or even in protective agriculture. For example, I know in UWI there was some experimenting lab farming. And when I say lab farming, in other words, planting indoors, you know, planting, yes, growing crops in a environment that is protected against the elements of the weather, etc. So you have the necessary research associated with that, how it can be done, where it can be done, etc., and how farmers can be involved in that. But even the farmers themselves, mind you, Pablo, they have their own strategies and ways in which they themselves, and that's again where we say research can come in, because the farmers themselves can guide research, because what strategies do they use and what has been working for them, we can therefore highlight these things that have been working for farmers, and others can utilize these strategies also.
Well, we're talking agriculture and we've been focused on crop agriculture. What about livestock? Where are we and what kind of policies and approaches do you think is necessary in order to get our livestock where it is required to be?
Okay, from my own research, we are far away where livestock is concerned in terms of being able, we can't even meet our domestic market when it comes to like livestock production. And we need a lot of maybe investment, and we need a lot of opportunities surrounding livestock development within Grenada. We have Carriacou, for example, where a lot of livestock rearing is done, but there's an opportunity there to see how this can be further developed. I know that the ministry is currently looking at ways in which they can enhance the livestock industry, because they see the paucity, you know, as it relates to livestock production in Grenada. So I do know from my own engagement that there is a concerted effort being made towards the development of our livestock industry, because we see the lack is seen, you know. So we do have an issue as it relates to livestock. I was speaking to, only last night, I was speaking to a restaurant owner who was struggling to find goat meat, you know, and he was saying we do not have enough, and even we import these things, you know, we import pork, we import mutton, we import these types of meat, and it just goes to show. And even when you look at the cost of these meats on the market, it's very costly for us. So there is an effort to inject some sort of investment into the livestock industry and to encourage more livestock farming. And I do believe that this is one of the objectives of the Ministry of Agriculture, knowing that there is a lack. I am not too sure as to what extent the injection will be, as to what extent they intend to help in terms of developing that industry, but I do know that there is some direction there.
Before we come to a close for this afternoon, can you tell us, we've spoken about crop farming, we've spoken about livestock. Can you tell us the state of honey production in the country? Have you explored that area?
No, unfortunately, I have not done any much research there, but I think it's something that needs to be explored. We do have some producers, some local producers. Yeah, and for example, they're right in my area. They're the person who I usually access from, and we have very good quality honey in Grenada that's actually been acknowledged worldwide. For example, on Miss Jessimy, Miss Valma Jessimy.
She's in a zone of her own, really.
Right.
Yes,
She's done extensive research and extensive work where this is concerned.
She's a scientist.
Yeah, but I've not explored that particular industry much in my research.
Before we close, from your vantage point, one of the things that's been part of the conversation recently when it comes to agriculture is the whole issue of that crop that's been illegal for so many years. And we saw that that CARICOM did put a commission in place, a report has come forward, and so on. From your vantage point, what's your take on this whole scenario, and where are we in terms of our preparedness to embrace that industry? I'm speaking about the marijuana industry.
Yeah, well, one of the things that came up in our discussion was the need for research. And hence there is need for extensive research, in that area to basically, first of all, see where we are we with it, how prepared are we in terms of creating that enabling environment for quote unquote the decriminalization or and the generation of it as planting it and making it legal, etc. So the research is needed, and the research is also even needed as it relates to the social side, the perspective of us as a people. So it's not just in relation to, how it can be utilized, what we would utilize it for, the types of market opportunities that exist, locally and externally. What areas would be getting involved with it? Is it for recreational purposes, or would it be for medicinal purposes? So the research is needed, and I think the enabling environment needs to be created. And so the dialogue, for me, we are still in the dialogue phase, and I'm not seeing too much in the dialogue as it relates to the research side of it. There needs to be extensive research as to what opportunities exist, even for farmers, the land, the designated land space, all of these things has to be taken into consideration. But I believe that there are opportunities out there as it relates to that particular crop. The opportunities are there, and there are vast opportunities, not just in the actual product, but the value addition that can come from the product. So this I think is a welcome, trend in terms of going forward with it. But the research is needed for us to be properly positioned, to be able to harness the benefits that can be garnered from this particular crop.
Now, earlier on you spoke, and I think this is going to be the final official question. You spoke about the whole issue of networking, the kind of network that you have established over the years. How do you think this networking that you've established can be harnessed to our benefit?
Well, I'm going to drop a cat in the bag here. With that, I hope I'm not preempted. So through that particular networking, and I do hope that I'm not jumping the gun here with the Ministry of Agriculture, but through that particular networking and collaborative effort, the Ministry of Agriculture was approached to host the Caribbean Food Crop Society in Grenada in, I think, July where they would be bringing experts from across the region, both English speaking, French speaking, Spanish speaking, and as far back as far away as even South Africa. So it'd be bringing in these persons to look at, you know, the whole sector. So they would be this organization usually have their meetings, the national meetings or global meetings in different parts of the world, different parts of the world. And this year we have been able to through the networking, you know, and working along with the government to get them to agree to actually host that particular session here this year. So that's one benefit, I think, that can come from this whole idea of networking. And so that's one. There is also the opportunity with what we call the Caribbean Agricultural Providers Network that does a lot of professional development in extension. It's often done in agricultural extension. It's often done online. The training opportunities, and it's generated from the UWI in terms of its secretariat, and a lot of our extension assistants do access these professional development opportunities. And again, that is through networking opportunity. They have formed a local country forum, which is called the Grenada Caribbean Agricultural Extension Network Providers. And they have been able to access opportunities to access like training for extension officers, as well as opportunities for farmers who might be interested. So in recent times, there was a basic training on animal husbandry, and this was funding because of the networking, you know. So a lot of our extension officers access that particular training. And even in the area of research, that particular network receive funding for engaging in terms of research in value chain. So right now, I think there's a research ongoing on perspective in terms of value chain as it relates to women. So hopefully these findings can be presented to government and utilized for, you know, policy direction, policy guidance, etc. So all that is because of, you know, the networking. And then there's the opportunities as it relates to, you know, linking with other universities that you can tap in on their area for capacity building. So for example, the University of Florida, they're willing and ready. The University of the West Indies, other universities as far as India, and so you have persons there who are willing and ready and able, if there is a need to, you know, to help in any way as it relates to capacity building and training opportunities. And so the network is there and can be harnessed.
Okay, so Dr. Barry, well, thank you very much. We've had you here for coming up on 2 hours now already, you know. So, but you've really enlightened us, and you've really, you know, shared. I could understand now after listening to you here, you know, why you are in such high demand and so on, the BBC and wherever, you know, as you know, looking out for you and want to tap your brain, you know. Any final words, any parting words as we close the message to the grassroots? And because what you've shared here is really food for thought and, you know, real enlightenment for our grassroots people out there.
Well, I have two quotations that I wrote down that I want to leave us with. And these two quotations are that are dear to my heart, and they came from Maurice Bishop. One says increasing local production would lead to job creation and hence reducing unemployment, increased export, and as such foreign earnings. And that was a quote that he gave when he spoke about the need for why there's a need to increase agricultural development because of the amount of things it can lead to. And then secondly, the right of freedom of expression can really only be relevant if people are not too hungry or too tired. So the idea, the idea of us being able to freely express ourselves, we ought to be food secure. You know, we ought to be in a where we're not hungry or where we're not tired, and then where we are not too dependent. You know, and so we therefore would be able to freely express ourselves. So I just want to repeat that the right of freedom and expression can really only be relevant if people are not too hungry or too tired. And I want to leave with that as a reason why, you know, we should basically strive for food security.
Dr. Barry, you see that last one that you said there?
Yeah.
it really have me reflecting on our situation, you know, and our recent experiences and the way how, anyway, let's not go there right now.
Is for another discussion.
Let's not go there right now. Yes, that's for another discussion, you know, because I mean, we've heard the poor and vulnerable being branded about so much, you know, and it's your quotation just brought out this whole issue of poor and vulnerable and how we've gotten to be, you know, that magnitude of poor and vulnerable and so in the country, and so that we have to have so many different social services programs and all that kind of thing. But that's another matter for another day. I just want to say thank you very much for making yourself available. And Brother John.
Yes, sir.
I must throw that bit inside of here. You know what I mean? I'm happy. I'm happy that my brethren didn't say, well, you're competing against me, so I ain't letting my wife come on your show. You know what I mean?
It's all friendly competition, man. You know?
Yeah,
it's all friendly competition.
You know?
That's
because this is the wife of Larry Barry, the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. And we go into convention on March the 5th, and both him and I are contenders for that position on March the 5th, including
I wish you both the best.
including the Minister for Mobilization and Implementation, Honorable Andy Williams. So it's a three-way race between us going forward. Yeah. So you see the love that exists within the National Democratic Congress. You know, under other circumstances, some people may not allow their wife to be on my show this evening. Thank you very much, Dr. I just say I had to close with this one and save this one for last.
Pablo.
You know? Yes,
John. You present love that we see in the Northwest, in the Northwest constituency. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That love still radiating around the country, you know. So I think this is a friendly involvement in the whole process here, you know. We still go, we're showing how we could still unify and work together. There's no yes, working together. Yeah.
Because I often say, because we go around, we go to the different constituencies, we do our presentations and so. And I often say to them, I say, listen, me and this gentleman, we go a long way back, right? And at the end of the day, somebody is going to have to hold the position. But when that is over, we have to work together in the building of the institution. So whichever way it goes, that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes. So thank you, Dr. Barry.
You're welcome. Anytime, you know, anytime.
Yes,
it's an area I have a passion for, and I may not know everything. I would not be, you know, privy to all of the knowledge, but whatever I know of, I am always willing to speak to it, you know. So that's
I can say I have been deeply edified, greatly edified here this afternoon, and I was happy that we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I really want to
close. Yeah, this is where we close the MTTG show, the Message to the Grassroots program for this evening. It's the 6th edition, and I am your humble servant, your host, Raphael Paul Pablo. Brother John?
Well, yes, again, just want to say thank you to you and to Tessa. Again, is always a family member to the show, to Gem FM, and she always coming for high praise by the B man, and always say to when you talk to her, say hi. But I guess now she's all into that whole family. So I guess the interaction will be a continuous thing going back and forth with B man. But I know she makes some reference, she didn't call him, but it's all good. You know what he says, right? He said, I had a conversation one time. He said, I've been doing a lot of stuff free with no name. My name wasn't attached to it. I never get credit. I get negative credit. So going forward, anything you do now, your name should be mentioned as a good work. Don't afraid to say where you're coming from. Just give the good credit.
No, but when I officially drop the documentation,
yes.
then I officially recognize it.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So I remember he shared a story with us that they'll come to the prison by night, like Nicodemus, for advice on the economy, and they get the result, they get the funding, they get everything, and then the day. And 2-3 days later, something happening going on, he didn't come with a negative, not mention the good things he has done. But nevertheless, man, this is great. We're doing great. And Gem FM, we all about education to liberate. You know what I mean? So as often as we come here, our motto, education is liberation, is one thing that we want to continue doing, to educate people, whether through songs, through talk shows, through motivation, is creating that environment where people could come in and we could listen to us, watch us, hear us, and be edified. Yes? Educating a nation around the world, making one space available to everybody to learn and to grow from it. And so again, thank you, Tessa. Thank you, Pablo. Again.
All right then. Okay,
yeah.
bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, all the best.
All right. Pablo. It's Pablo. Okay.
Grenada Ileja, Satan Susi. Grenada Ileja, Satan Susi. Mami oh mama, by style flavors from the Ghana. Mami oh mama, flavors of Grenada in wonder. By style flavor, best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Island taste and spicy, best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Garlic oil and vegan pesto, I telling you that's the way to go. Hot sauce on the green with seasoning, flavor that will love your body. Strictly organic, so it's healthy. That will make your food so tasty. Vitamin D, calcium, and iron. Number one seasoning on the island. By style flavors. Please contact us at 347.
All right, this is Jam FM, and
song that
take it back again. This one to end the show.
You try with a federation, the whole thing end in confusion. CARICOM and then CARIFTA, but somehow a spelling disaster. Mr. West Indian politician, I mean you went to a big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unity, I know it's very. You don't only rap to your people and tell them like me, them is one race, from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, is for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. You say that the federation was imported quite from England, and you're going on for a CARIFTA with a true West Indian flavor. But since CARIFTA started running, morning, noon, and night, all I hearing it's just money speech, them prime minister giving. But I say no second money, good for my youth. First of all, your people need their identity like one race, from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, is for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. CARICOM is wasting time. The whole Caribbean gone blind. If we don't know from where we come in, then we can't plan where we go in. That's why some want to be communist, rather some want to be socialist, and one set a religion to add to the foolishness. Look, a man who don't know his history, how could a man who don't know his roots from his own ideology like from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, is for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. The federation done dead, and Carissa going to bed. But the cult of the Rastafarian spreading through the Caribbean. It have Rastas now in Grenada, it have Rastas now in St. Lucia. But to run Carifta, yes, you getting pressure. If the Rastafari movement spreading and Carifta dying slow, then it's something that Rastas on. That them politicians don't know that there's one race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. And so they pushing one common intention, it's for a better life in the region for the woman and their children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man.
Hey, Mary, come here, girl. I want to tell you something. Do you wanna? Look, I feel real water for you, you know. And I've been wanting to tell you this for the longest while. I can't rap too much, you know. So let me just ask you, do you wanna? Do you wanna? Marry? Tell me if you're shy. Tell me easy, tell me like this. Do you wanna? Yes. Marry, do you wanna? Marry, do you wanna? I'm coming high. I'm coming high. I'm coming with Mario. Oh Lord, Mario, do you wanna? Oh Lord, Mario, do you wanna? Mario, do you wanna? Good man. Music sweet. Music sweet. With me, marijuana. Oh Lord, marijuana. Oh Lord, marijuana. Good man. Marijuana. Good man. Me head bad. Me head bad. With me bad. Oh Lord, good girl, marry do you want? Becky dread. Becky dread. Dreader than Mali all. Hola, marijuana. Marijuana. Wanna marry? Do you 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 wanna? High, I'm coming high. I'm coming high. I'm coming high. high. I'm coming high, high, high.
Just stay like this and doing nothing. As the world over, you just a freeloader. Problems every day, you have nothing to say. You rather run and hide before you take a side. I tell you, stand up for something or you will die for. In your whole lifespan, you never make one stand. Stand up for something or you will die for. People dying every day and you have nothing to say. Stand up for something or you will die for. Stand up.
Yeah, stand up for something, for nothing. This is the Black Stallion, Dr. Leroy Calise again. Good evening, good afternoon, goodbye. From now, from Gem FM. Stay tuned. If you're on here, go over to www.gemfm.ca. That's where the music and everything else continues. All right. So God bless you and make your blessing. Join us back tonight at 8 p.m. And I hope Miss Margaret, I will talk to you offline. Call you up and let's have a discussion tonight with Delbert Baptist and others. All right. Blessings. One love, my people. Again, join us next week, Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. Grenada time, Canada time, 3 p.m. Grenada time, for Message to the Grassroots with Raphael Paul right here on Gem FM. Love it.
Fighting election before you sympathize, you rather criticize. I tell you, stand up for something or you will die. Corruption down with throat, still you will not vote. Why? Stand up for something or you will die. Killing going on every day, you have nothing to say. Stand up for something or you will die for them. Stand up. Stand up for something or you will die for nothing.
And happening tomorrow evening, or the 19th, yes, the Grenada Independence Planning Committee, in collaboration with the Office of the Consul General of Grenada in Toronto, presents Showcase Grenada Exhibition 2023, Sunday, February 19, 2023, Jamaica Island Association Center, 995 Arrow Road, North York, Ontario. Admission is $5, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Music by DJ Andy, Kids Workshop, all done on sale, cultural performances, Grenada History Exhibition, Arts and Craft, and Games. Sponsored by Pure Grenada, Spice Isle of the Caribbean, and Caribbean Airlines. Not forgetting GMFM. Again, phone number to call is 416-595-1343 is the number to call for more information. And also coming up, yes, in the heat of things, as we celebrate 49 years, the Prime Minister, the NDC Group, Canada, hosting the Prime Minister of Grenada, Honorable Dickon Mitchell, and delegation visit to Toronto, Canada 2023, Canada Day, long weekend, events to be announced soon. Contact 647-859-4142, 647-242-9256, 514-718, 6471 for more information. Details to follow. All right. Blessings, everybody. God bless you. Make you a blessing. As I'm out of here, continue to listen to GemFM at www.gemfm.ca.
I'm strong, I'm strong. I am a Grenadian. Yes, man. Grenada, Grenada, the land where I was born. I know you were suffering. Men have raped you and abused you and left you there crying. I devote my thought, my body, and my soul. I stretch forth my helping hand to help you out. I haven't got diamond, silver, nor even gold, but blessings I give to its west, north, and south. Oh, Grenada, Grenada, here I come, sweet, sweet Grenada.